The ship that came to Earth was beautiful in the way that dangerous things are often beautiful. It hung above the clouds like a silver teardrop, 3 kilometers long and covered in patterns that seemed to shift and dance in the sunlight. The people of Earth watched it on their screens and held their breath. First contact had finally arrived. Ambassador Velthrix of the Seltheri stepped off the landing craft and onto the soil of Geneva with the confidence of someone who had done this many times before. His species was tall and thin, with skin that glowed in soft blues and purples. Those colors meant something. They changed with emotion, with intent, with mood. Right now, they pulsed in calm, steady waves. The ambassador was not worried. He had never needed to be worried. No young species had ever refused what he came to offer. The Galactic Sovereignty Council had ruled the stars for 40,000 years. 12 elder species, ancient beyond human understanding, had built an empire of 10,000 worlds. They had seen countless civilizations rise from their home planets and reach toward the stars. Every single one had accepted the Council's protection. Every single one had understood that the galaxy was old and dangerous, and that young species needed guidance. Humanity would be no different. Velthrix was certain of this. Secretary General Amara Okonkwo met him at the steps of the United Earth Assembly. She was a woman of 60 years, the gray hair cut short, and eyes that had seen too many crises to be impressed by glowing alien skin. She shook the ambassador's hand with a firm grip and led him inside without ceremony. The assembly chamber was full. 1,200 representatives from every nation on Earth sat in curved rows that rose toward the ceiling. They had come from every corner of the planet, from great powers and small islands, from ancient civilizations and young democracies. They had argued for months about how to handle this moment. In the end, they had decided to listen first and speak second. Ambassador Velthrix stood at the central podium and began his speech. His voice was smooth, translated perfectly by devices that humanity had not built. "People of Earth," he said, "you stand at the threshold of a great journey. For 10,000 years, you have looked up at the stars and wondered if you were alone. You are not. The galaxy is filled with life, with wonder, with dangers you cannot yet imagine. The Galactic Sovereignty Council offers you protection from those dangers. We offer you trade, knowledge, and a place among the stars." He paused, letting his words sink in. His skin pulsed with warm, welcoming colors. "In return, we ask for very little. You will register your fleet with the Council and submit to reasonable limits on military expansion. You will accept guidance in your technological development to ensure you do not accidentally destroy yourselves. As so many young species have done, you will pause your colonial expansion beyond Mars until the Council can assess which worlds are safe for human settlement."
Oh.
The chamber was silent. Velthrix took this as a good sign. "These terms are generous," he continued. "Other species have been asked for much more. The Council recognizes humanity's potential. We wish to see you flourish. All you must do is accept our friendship." He bowed slightly and stepped back from the podium. Secretary General Okonkwo did not move from her seat for a long moment. Then she stood slowly and walked to the podium. She picked up the tablet that contained the full treaty and began to read. The chamber remained silent as the minutes passed. Representatives shifted in their seats. Ambassador Velthrix's colors remained calm, but there was a flicker of something beneath them. Impatience, perhaps? Or the first hint of concern. Amara Okonkwo set the tablet down. "Ambassador," she said, "I have read your treaty carefully. I have shared it with every representative in this chamber and with billions of citizens watching across our world. I want to make sure I understand it correctly." Of course, Velthrix replied. "I am happy to clarify any points. Section 7 states that humanity must dismantle all colonies beyond Mars within 5 standard years. Is that correct? It is for your own safety. The galaxy is dangerous, and you do not yet know which territories are claimed by hostile species. Section 12 states that all human military vessels must be registered with the Council and that no new warships may be constructed without Council approval, reasonable precaution. Young species often build weapons they cannot control. and Section 15 states that Council overseers will be stationed on Earth to monitor our technological development and ensure we do not pursue dangerous research. Velthrix's colors shifted slightly. The Council has great experience in guiding young civilizations. Many species have destroyed themselves with weapons they did not understand. We wish to prevent such tragedy. Amara Okonkwo nodded slowly. She looked out at the chamber, at the 1,200 faces watching her, at the cameras broadcasting her words to every corner of the planet. Ambassador Velthrix, she said, you call this diplomacy. You call it friendship and protection. But I have read your treaty, and I see it for what it is. You are not offering us a place among the stars. You are offering us a cage. The chamber erupted. Representatives stood from their seats, shouting and calling out. Some cheered. Others looked terrified. Ambassador Velthrix's skin flashed with colors that no human had ever seen before. Warning colors. Threat colors. Secretary General, he said, his voice no longer smooth. I do not think you understand your position. Humanity is one species on one planet. The Council rules 10,000 worlds. You have no allies. You have no fleet capable of challenging our power. If you refuse our protection, you will be quarantined to this solar system. No human ship will ever leave. No human voice will ever be heard beyond your sun. You will be alone forever, while the galaxy moves on without you. Amara Okonkwo did not flinch. Then we will be alone, she said. But we will be free. She turned to the chamber. I call for a vote. All in favor of rejecting the Council's treaty, rise now. One by one, the representatives stood. First dozens, then hundreds. Within minutes, the entire chamber was on its feet. 1,200 voices from 1,200 nations, united for the first time in human history, spoke with one word: no. Ambassador Velthrix stared at them. In 40,000 years, across hundreds of first contacts, this had never happened. His skin went pale, drained of all color. He turned and walked out of the chamber without another word. That night, a ship rose from Geneva and vanished into the darkness between stars. The message he carried would shake the foundations of the Council. On Earth. Secretary General Okonkwo addressed her people one final time before the sun set. They will come back, she said. They will try to make us kneel. But we are human beings. We did not crawl out of caves and cross oceans and reach the moon by kneeling. Whatever comes next, we face it together. We face it standing, across the planet. In every city and village, people looked up at the stars. For the first time in their history, the stars looked back. And humanity did not blink. The Council would learn in time that they had made a terrible mistake. They had expected fear. They had expected submission. They had forgotten something important, something that all the elder species had lost long ago. They had forgotten what it meant to be young, to be hungry, to be willing to risk everything for the chance to be free. Humanity remembered. And humanity began to build. The Council did not wait long to respond. 6 months after Ambassador Velthrix returned with news of humanity's refusal, the largest fleet in galactic history arrived at the edge of the solar system. 3,000 warships, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built, formed a wall of metal and fire around the sun. They came from a dozen different species, but they flew under one banner. The Galactic Sovereignty Council had spoken, and the galaxy had answered. Admiral Kethvorin of the Thesk commanded the blockade fleet. He was a warrior from a warrior species, covered in thick scales and battle scars. His people had once been proud and independent, but that was long ago, before they had accepted the Council's protection. Now they served, and Kethvorin served better than most. He had crushed rebellions on 30 worlds. He had never lost a battle. He looked at the small blue planet on his display and felt nothing but contempt. Such a tiny world, he said to his officers. Such foolish creatures. They will beg within a year. His officers agreed. They always agreed. The blockade announcement was broadcast on every frequency humanity could receive. Admiral Kethvorin's face appeared on screens across Earth. Mars, and the small colonies scattered through the asteroid belt. "People of Earth," he said, "your leaders have made a terrible choice. They have rejected the friendship of the Council. They have chosen isolation over prosperity, pride over survival. The Council is merciful. We do not wish to destroy you, but we cannot allow your rebellion to spread. From this moment forward, no human vessel will pass beyond the orbit of Neptune. Any ship that tries will be destroyed. Any colony that resists will be eliminated. You are alone now. You will remain alone until you learn wisdom." The transmission ended. Across Earth, people gathered in the streets. Looking up at a sky that had suddenly become a prison wall, Secretary General Okonkwo called an emergency session of the United Earth Assembly. The representatives were afraid. Some of them were angry. A few demanded that she surrender, that she accept whatever terms the Council offered. Before it was too late, Amara listened to them all. Then she spoke. "They expect us to panic," she said. "They expect us to fight among ourselves, to break apart into factions, to come crawling to them one by one. That is how it has always worked. That is how they have conquered every young species for 40,000 years." She stood taller. "We will not give them what they expect. We will not panic. We will not fight each other. We will go quiet. We will let them think they have one. And while they grow bored and lazy, while they stop watching so closely, we will prepare." The assembly voted. This time, there was no cheering, no grand speeches. There was only grim determination. Humanity would not surrender. Humanity would wait. The months passed. The blockade held its position. Admiral Kethvorin grew restless. He had expected attacks, desperate charges, some kind of resistance. Instead, there was silence. Human ships stopped moving. Transmissions dropped by 90%. The few signals that escaped the solar system were boring things. Supply requests and engineering reports, nothing worth analyzing. "They have given up," his officers said. "They are dying slowly, as all isolated species do." Kethvorin was not so sure. He had hunted prey before, and he knew the difference between an animal that had surrendered and one that was waiting for the right moment to strike. But his superiors on the Council homeworlds were satisfied. They began rotating crews, sending veterans home and replacing them with younger, less experienced soldiers. The blockade became a posting for those who had done something wrong, a punishment rather than an honor. 3 years passed. Deep within the asteroid belt, in places the Council's sensors could not reach, humanity worked. Admiral Chen Whalen had been a submarine commander before the Council arrived. She understood how to hide, how to move without being seen, how to build weapons in secret places. The Council expected humanity to fight with ships and missiles, the same way every other species had fought. Chen Whalen had no intention of meeting their expectations. The Prometheus array was her greatest achievement. It was not a fleet. It was not a weapon in any traditional sense. It was a network of thousands of small platforms hidden in hollowed-out asteroids and buried beneath the ice of distant moons. Each platform was built using biosynthetic manufacturing, grown rather than constructed, invisible to the sensors that the Council had used for millennia. But the array was only one part of the plan. On Titan, in laboratories hidden beneath the frozen methane lakes, humanity's greatest scientists worked on a problem that the Council had declared impossible. Faster-than-light communication required relay stations, massive structures that took centuries to build. The Council controlled all of them. Without relays, humanity could not coordinate, could not plan, could not strike as one. Dr. Yuki Tanaka led the team that proved the Council wrong. The Whisper Network used quantum entanglement in ways that Council physics said could not work. It was unstable, difficult, and required constant adjustment. But it worked. Messages could travel instantly across any distance, without relays, without signals that the Council could intercept. When the first test succeeded, Dr. Tanaka cried. Her team cried with her. They had been told their entire lives that certain things were impossible, that the elder species had already discovered everything worth discovering. They had proven that humanity still had surprises to offer. The 3-year anniversary of the blockade arrived. Admiral Kethforin held a ceremony for his crew, congratulating them on their patience and discipline. He told them that humanity would surrender soon, that isolation always broke young species in the end, at that exact moment. A single message traveled through the Whisper network. It reached every human settlement simultaneously. From the depths of Earth's oceans to the smallest outpost on Pluto's moons. One word. Ready, Secretary General. Okonkwo received the message in her office on Earth. She walked to the window and looked up at the stars. At the invisible wall of ships that had kept her people prisoner for 3 years. "You think you know us," she said softly. "You think we are like all the others, that we will break and bend and beg. You have forgotten what we are." She pressed a button on her desk. Across the solar system, humanity woke up. The Admiral's sensors screamed warnings at him. Ships were appearing everywhere, thousands of them, emerging from asteroids and moons and places that should have been empty. They were not attacking the blockade. They were not doing anything he had expected. They were leaving, using pathways through space that the Council had declared too unstable for travel. Humanity's new fleet vanished. Not toward the blockade, but around it, past it. Into the galaxy beyond, Admiral Kethforin stared at his displays in disbelief. "Where are they going?" he demanded. His officers had no answer. By the time the Council realized what was happening, it was already too late. Humanity had slipped through their fingers like water through a net. The cage they had built so carefully had a door that no one had noticed, and humanity had just walked through it. The Council had ruled the galaxy for 40,000 years because they controlled 3 things: military power, ancient knowledge, and trade. Their fleets were vast, their scientists were brilliant, and their economy connected 10,000 worlds in a web of commerce that no single species could survive without. They had built this system carefully over countless generations. They believed it could never be broken. Humanity broke it in a single day. The Nexin. Trade relays were the heart of galactic commerce. Each relay was a massive station, some of them older than human civilization, floating at key points throughout the galaxy. Ships needed these relays to navigate safely through hyperspace. Merchants needed them to transfer credits and confirm contracts. Without the relays, trade stopped. Without trade, the Council's economy would collapse. No one had ever attacked the relays. No one had ever dared. They were protected by ancient treaties and defended by automated systems that could destroy entire fleets. The Council believed they were untouchable. Captain James Okonkwo, Fondo, the Secretary General's nephew, commanded the human strike force that changed everything. His ship, the Defiance, was small by Council standards, barely 100 meters long. But it carried technology that the Council had never seen. Weapons designed by scientists who refused to accept that anything was impossible. 7 strike forces hit 7 relays simultaneously. They did not use missiles or energy beams. They used electromagnetic pulses, tuned to frequencies that Council engineers had never encountered. The pulses passed through shields like light through glass and fried the relay systems in seconds. No lives were lost. No shots were fired. The relays simply stopped working. Captain Okonkwo watched the massive station go dark on his display. Its lights flickered and died. Its sensors went blind. Its communication systems fell silent. In an instant, an installation that had operated continuously for 15,000 years became nothing more than floating metal. "All teams report success," his communications officer said. 7 relays disabled. No casualties on either side. James nodded. He felt no joy in what they had done, only grim satisfaction. The Council had chosen to make humanity's prison. Now humanity had chosen to make the Council's economy bleed. Across the galaxy, chaos erupted. On Selther Prime, the homeworld of Ambassador Velthrix's species, merchants discovered that their credit transfers had failed. Ships loaded with cargo sat in ports with nowhere to go. Prices began to rise within hours. Within days, entire markets collapsed. On Thesk, Admiral Kethvorin's homeworld factories shut down because raw materials could not be delivered. Workers who had never known unemployment found themselves standing in lines for food rations. Anger grew like a fire in dry grass. On 100 other worlds, the story was the same. The Council's economy was built on the assumption that the relays would always work, that trade would always flow, that stability would last forever. No one had prepared for this. No one had imagined that a young species, barely out of its own solar system, could strike at the very foundations of galactic civilization. The Council called an emergency session. Chancellor Morix of the Seltheri, the oldest and wisest of the Council leaders, listened as Admiral Kethvorin raged about human treachery. They attacked civilian infrastructure. The Admiral roared, "They have crippled our economy. This is an act of war, and we must respond with overwhelming force." Chancellor Morix's skin pulsed with tired, faded colors. She had lived for 3 centuries. She had seen empires rise and fall. She had never seen anything like this. "What force would you use, Admiral?" she asked quietly. "Your blockade fleet is still circling an empty system. The humans are not there anymore. They are everywhere and nowhere, striking where we do not expect and vanishing before we can respond. Then we hunt them down." Kethvorin slammed his fist on the table. "We send every ship we have. We burn every rock they hide behind. And while we hunt them, who protects the remaining relays? Who maintains order on worlds where people are already rioting over food prices? Who keeps the Council together when our member species are asking why they should sacrifice their own fleets for a war we cannot win?" The Admiral fell silent. He had no answer. Ambassador Velthrix spoke next. His voice was bitter, his colors dark with shame. I stood before them 3 years ago. I told them they had no choice. I told them they would beg for our protection. I was wrong." He looked around the chamber at the other Council leaders. "We were all wrong. We saw young species and assumed they would behave like all the others. We forgot that the galaxy has room for new ideas, new strategies, new kinds of war. Then what do you suggest?" Chancellor Morix asked. Before Velthrix could answer, a message arrived. It was broadcast on every frequency, reaching every world in the Council simultaneously. Secretary General Amara Okonkwo's face appeared on screens across the galaxy. "Leaders of the Council," she said, 3 years ago, you came to Earth with an ultimatum. You offered us protection in exchange for our freedom. We refused, and you tried to make us prisoners. Now you understand what that refusal means." Her eyes were calm, her voice steady. "We did not attack your relays to hurt innocent people. We attacked them because they were the chains you used to bind the galaxy. Without those chains, your member species will have to ask themselves difficult questions. Why do they pay tribute to rulers who cannot protect them? Why do they follow leaders who start wars they cannot win?" She leaned forward slightly. "We do not want an empire. We do not want to rule anyone. We want only what every species deserves, the right to grow, to explore, to make our own choices without asking permission from those who came before. If you give us that right, we will help you rebuild your relays. We will share the technology we have developed. We will be your partners instead of your prisoners." She paused. "But if you choose war, if you send your fleets to hunt us, you will find that the relays were only the beginning. We have been preparing for 3 years. We know things about your systems, your weaknesses, your blind spots that you have not discovered in 40,000 years. You built your civilization on the assumption that nothing would ever change. We are the change you did not expect." The message ended. Chancellor Morix sat in silence for a long moment. Then she spoke. "The humans have given us a choice. We can accept their terms and survive, or we can fight them and watch everything we have built crumble to dust." Admiral Kethvorin stood. "I will never kneel to pray." The Chancellor looked at him with ancient, weary eyes. "Then you have learned nothing, and you will lose everything." The vote was called. War or peace? Pride or survival? The Council could not agree, and while they argued, humanity continued to build, because they knew that the Council's pride would win in the end. It always did with old empires. And when the next battle came, humanity would be ready. The Council did not fall from a single blow. It crumbled slowly, like a great tree rotting from within. For 6 months after the relay attacks, the 12-member species argued and blamed each other while their economies collapsed and their people grew angry. The humans had not destroyed the council. They had simply shown everyone that the council could be challenged. That was enough. The Thesk were the first to leave. General Thaxol had served the council for his entire life. He had fought their wars, crushed their enemies, and believed in their cause. But as he watched his people starve because ships could not deliver food, as he listened to council leaders argue about pride and punishment while children went hungry, something inside him broke. He remembered the old stories, the ones his grandmother had told him before such stories were forbidden. Long ago, the Thesk had been free. They had roamed the stars as warriors and explorers, answering to no one. Then the council had come with their silk and iron, their offers of protection that were really demands for submission. The Thesk had accepted because they were afraid. They had forgotten who they were. General Thaxol refused to forget any longer. He stood before the council chamber and spoke. Words that had not been spoken in 10,000 years. The Thesk withdraw from the Galactic Sovereignty Council. We reject your authority. We will chart our own course among the stars. Admiral Kethvorin, his own kinsman, stared at him in horror. You are a traitor to your species. No, Thaxol's voice was calm. I am the first Thesk in 10,000 years to remember what our species truly is. You should try it sometime, cousin. He turned and walked out of the chamber. Behind him, the council erupted into chaos. The Kreth followed within days. They were a peaceful species. Scientists and philosophers who had joined the council for protection against more warlike civilizations. But they had watched the humans challenge the impossible and win. They had seen young minds solve problems that ancient scholars had declared unsolvable. The Kreth realized that the council had not been protecting them. It had been holding them back. The Morvani left next, then two smaller species whose names humans had never learned. One by one, the council lost its members, its authority, its power to command obedience. The great alliance that had ruled for 40,000 years was breaking apart. And there was nothing the remaining leaders could do to stop it. Secretary General Sakwo received General Thaxol on a small moon, far from any council patrol. The meeting place was cold and barren, chosen precisely because neither side could claim any advantage. They met as equals, something that would have been unthinkable a year ago. Thaxol was even more impressive in person than in the broadcasts. He stood 3 meters tall, covered in scales that had been scarred by 100 battles. But when he knelt before Amara in the traditional Thesk gesture of respect between equals, she saw something unexpected in his eyes. Hope. Secretary General, he said, my people have watched your species with great interest. When you refused the council, we thought you were fools. When you survived the blockade, we thought you were lucky. When you destroyed the relays without taking a single life, we understood that you were something new. He rose to his feet. The Thesk were warriors once, before we forgot ourselves. Your people reminded us what it means to fight for something worth fighting for. We do not wish to serve you, but we would be honored to stand beside you. Amara extended her hand, a human gesture that Thaxol had learned to recognize. We don't want servants, she said. We never did. We just want the right to exist on our own terms. If your people want the same thing, then we are already allies. They shook hands. It was the first formal alliance between humanity and another species, the beginning of something that would reshape the galaxy. The Free Species Alliance grew quickly. The Thesk brought military experience. The Kreth brought scientific knowledge. The Morvani brought economic connections that the Council had tried to monopolize. Each species brought something unique. Together, they became stronger than any of them had been alone. The remaining Council members watched this alliance with fear and fury. Chancellor Morix, old and tired, pleaded for peace. She saw that the war was already lost, that fighting would only destroy what little remained of Council authority. But Admiral Kethvorin and the hardliners refused to listen. We have ruled for 40,000 years, Kethvorin declared. We will not bow to animals and traitors. If we must burn the galaxy to maintain order, then we will burn it. He called for a vote on total war against humanity and the Free Species Alliance. The chamber fell silent as each species cast their decision. Marix voted against. The Seltheri, her people, followed her lead. 3 other species joined them, willing to sacrifice everything for a war they could not win. But Kethvorin had 4 votes on his side, including his own Thesk successors, who had denounced General Thaxel as a criminal. The vote was tied. 4-4, Chancellor Morix made the final decision. "I will not vote for war," she said. "I will not spend the lives of our people to preserve the pride of those who have learned nothing." The motion fails. Kethvorin roared in rage. "You are a coward. You are destroying everything our ancestors built." Morix looked at him with eyes that had seen centuries pass. "Our ancestors built an empire on the belief that they knew better than everyone else. They were wrong. The humans have proven that. The Thesk have proven that. Every species that has left us has proven that. We can adapt and survive, or we can cling to our pride and die. I choose survival." She stood slowly, her ancient body aching with every movement. "I will reach out to Secretary General Okonkwo. I will ask for peace. If the remaining council species wish to join me, they may. If they wish to continue this foolish war on their own, they will do so without my support." She walked out of the chamber. 4 species followed her. Admiral Kethvorin found himself alone, surrounded by empty seats where allies had once sat. His great war, his chance to crush humanity and restore the Council's glory, had vanished before it could begin. He stood in that empty chamber for a long time, staring at the lights of distant stars through the viewport. Somewhere out there, humanity was waiting, not with fear, but with patience. They had known all along that the Council would tear itself apart. They had simply given it the push it needed. And now, with half the galaxy united against the old order and the other half too broken to fight, the final chapter was about to begin. The Treaty of Ganymede was signed on a human station, and that choice was deliberate. For 40,000 years, every major galactic agreement had been made on Council worlds, Council chambers, under Council rules. The message was always the same. Come to us, bow to us, accept our way of doing things. Humanity refused to continue that tradition. The station orbited Jupiter's largest moon, a structure of metal and glass that humans had built in secret during the blockade years. It was not as grand as Council chambers. It did not have ancient halls or towering monuments to past glories. But it was new, it was human, and it represented something that the galaxy had not seen in millennia, a fresh start. Chancellor Morix arrived first. Her ship was elegant and ancient, covered in patterns that had been considered beautiful before humans had learned to make fire. But Morix herself looked tired. Her skin, which had once pulsed with confident colors, now flickered with uncertain shades that her aides had never seen before. She was 300 years old, and for the first time in her long life, she did not know what would happen next. General Thaxel came next, representing the Free Species Alliance. His ship was a warship, scarred and battle-worn, but flying colors of peace. Behind him came vessels from the Kreth, the Morvani, and a dozen other species who had broken free from Council control. They had been enemies once. Now they arrived together, united by their shared refusal to be ruled by those who did not understand them. Secretary General Mara Okonkwo greeted them personally at the docking bay. She wore simple clothes, no ceremonial robes or symbols of office. She shook hands with each delegate, looked them in the eyes, and thanked them for coming. Chancellor Morix found this strange. In Council tradition, leaders did not greet visitors like common hosts. They sat on thrones and waited to be approached. But Amara moved among the delegates as an equal, asking about their journeys, remembering the names of their aides, making small jokes that somehow eased the tension in the room. "You are not what I expected," Morix said quietly when they finally stood face to face. "What did you expect?" Amara asked. "A conqueror, a warlord, someone hungry for power." Amara smiled. "Then you still don't understand us. We never wanted to conquer anyone. We just wanted to be left alone. And yet you have reshaped the galaxy. We defended ourselves. Everything else was just consequences. The negotiations took 3 days. They argued about trade routes and territorial boundaries, about reparations and reconstruction, about how to handle the species that still supported the old council. But underneath all the details, one question dominated everything. What would replace the system that had ruled for 40,000 years? The answer came from Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the scientist who had invented the Whisper Network. She had been invited to represent humanity's scientific community. But she ended up speaking for something much larger. The council failed because it was built on the idea that some species are better than others, she said during a late-night session when everyone was tired and tempers were short. Elder species ruled because they were old. Young species obeyed because they were new. But wisdom does not come from age alone. Innovation does not come from following traditions. The galaxy needs a system where every voice matters, where new ideas can challenge old assumptions, where no one is automatically superior because of when their ancestors reached the stars. Chancellor Morix listened carefully. You are describing chaos. Without structure, without hierarchy, civilizations will fight endless wars. Maybe, Dr. Tanaka admitted, or maybe they will learn to cooperate because they have no choice. The council kept peace by controlling everything. But that peace was really just stagnation. Species stopped growing because they were not allowed to make their own mistakes. We believe that making mistakes and learning from them is how civilizations become truly great.
The General Thaxwell spoke up.
My people lost our way because we stopped being allowed to fail. We accepted protection and forgot how to protect ourselves. The humans gave us back our pride by showing us that we could still fight, still risk, still choose our own path. That is worth more than any peace the Council offered. The final treaty was unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. The Galactic Sovereignty Council would dissolve permanently. In its place, a new galactic forum would be created where every spacefaring species, regardless of age or power, would have an equal voice. Decisions would be made through debate and voting, not through the commands of elder species. Humanity would share its technologies freely, including the wormhole stabilization systems and the Whisper Network. In exchange, the former Council species would help rebuild the relay systems and open their borders to free trade with all willing partners. Most importantly, no species would ever again be forced to accept protection against their will. The galaxy would be dangerous and unpredictable, but it would also be free. Chancellor Morix signed for the former council, her markings flickering with emotions she could not name. Relief, perhaps, or grief for the world she had known, or hope for a future she would not live to see. General Thaxel signed for the Free Species Alliance, standing tall and proud in a way that Thesk had not stood for 10,000 years. Secretary General Amara Okonkwo signed last. Her hand was steady, her eyes clear. When she finished, she looked up at the assembly of aliens from across the galaxy and spoke words that would be remembered for centuries. We did not ask for this fight, she said. We did not want to challenge an empire that had ruled since before our ancestors learned to write. But when you came to us with chains disguised as gifts, we had only two choices: accept slavery or stand up for what we believed. We chose to stand. She set down the pen. We are not special. We are not chosen. We are simply stubborn enough to believe that every species deserves the chance to find its own way. Today we have built something new together. It will not be perfect. It will not be easy. But it will be ours, built on the principle that freedom is more important than safety, and that the future belongs to those brave enough to reach for it. A reporter from the Morvani Press called out a question. Secretary General, why did humanity reject the original offer? You could have had peace. You could have had safety. Why did you risk everything? Amara looked out the viewport at the stars, at the vast darkness that now belonged to everyone who was willing to explore it. Because you were not offering peace, she said. You were offering a cage with a pleasant view, and humans do not belong in cages. The broadcast ended. Across the galaxy, billions of beings from hundreds of species heard those words. Some were afraid of the uncertainty ahead, Some were angry that the old order had fallen, but many, perhaps more than anyone had expected, felt something they had not felt in a very long time. Hoped the age of the council was over. The age of freedom had begun. And humanity, the small species from the small blue planet that had dared to say no, stood at the center of it all. Not as rulers, not as conquerors, simply as equals, among the stars finally where they belonged.